Hi guys, and welcome back to my corner of the internet and YouTubes. And today I'm going to talk about the nine books that I read in the month of April 2024. My man's outside pressure washing right now, so if you hear that in the background, I am sorry. He picked a great time to do it, and I picked a great time to do this. But moving straight on in, I did read 9 books in April. I read my one nonfiction, because every month I try to read at least one nonfiction or classic or modern classic. And this month, because I know this is what everybody is the most interested in about, I read Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. And this is an anthropological nonfiction. It's mostly theoretical, but it talks about how we evolved from where we were, from the original species of Homo sapiens alongside the Neanderthals and the other species of humans that existed at the time, how we've impacted the planet. And it's obviously mostly theoretical, but it goes into how we've basically crushed the planet along with potentially crushing the other species of humans, and how that impacts us psychologically today, how the traits that sustained us through history are now kind of devastating us. And it even had theories about how our evolution impacts things like the stock market. It's really interesting. It is mostly theoretical, but I enjoyed it, especially since I was reading it alongside 2 books that do kind of talk about humans existing alongside other species of humans, mainly in Mark Lawrence and Leo Carew. So I thought that went alongside with the fantasy I'm reading really well. It was very depressing because it does talk about how we are devastating the planet and ourselves. But that was eye-opening if you want to be depressed and kind of self-loathing for a while. So let's talk about the fantasy that I read. The first one I already did a review of. That was a YA fantasy romance called Belladonna by Adeline Grace. And this is a Secret Garden retelling. You cannot tell me that this is not a Secret Garden retelling. I think I give this a 4-star. It does have death personified. We do have Signa. I think that's how you say her name. We do have Signa. She lost her family as an infant, and she has been going from household to household. Eventually, she winds up in this manor with her uncle and his 2 children and a stable boy. We do have death personified in this book. We do have magical powers. She is able to essentially summon death. But this was a great quick read. I think I gave this 4 stars. I pre-ordered the paperback. The second book is already out. Foxglove. I pre-ordered the paperback of this just so I can have matching sets. So we're going to see how that goes. In the third one, I believe, is coming out later this year. So that was a fun one. I do recommend that. If you liked Kingdom of the Wicked, you will like this. It's kind of a murder mystery fantasy romance. The romance isn't too intense, and it was just a fun quick read. The next YA fantasy that I read was Iron Flame. The second, I'm not sure what the name of the series is, but the book that comes after Fourth Wing. I loved Fourth Wing. I thought the spice was good. I thought the character building was good. I love the dragons. This, if you took all of the romance out of this book, like the thing that makes Fourth Wing, even the spice, if you took the kind of redundancy of the personality traits of the dragons, which I loved so much in the first book, this would have been a great fantasy. I got pulled out of the story so many times because just the drama between our 2 characters made them so just, these 2 are leading a revolution and they're worried about communicating with one another. So I did get pulled back a lot. I listened to about 6 chapters of this on audiobook, and that pulled me out of it even more. I did not like the audiobook narration, so I read it strictly from the book. But these 2, if honestly, without the romance, I think this would have been much better. I don't know if this was second book syndrome. The ending was great. The cliffhanger that we got at the ending of this is amazing. The story is amazing. I'm going to keep on reading this series, but I just did not like how some of this went. The jealousy with our Griffin writers, the spicy scenes, weren't that spicy. I just got pulled out of this story so many times strictly by the romance. Like, these are 20-something-year-olds that are essentially leading a revolution, and they're arguing about communicating with one another. So if you're reading this for the romantasy elements and maybe you're younger, then maybe you'll enjoy this, but I did not enjoy that aspect of it. I could have lived without the romance drama in that one. And I also read The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I did a whole review of this book. I could have lived without it. I don't need this in my life. It's very pretty. I love me some sprayed edges. But this book is about our main character, Lucia, who is living in Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. She is a Jewish girl posing as a Catholic girl. She performs miracles and is essentially used by her mistress to help her employer climb up the social ladder, and she's thrown into a competition with other people that can utilize miracles so other people can get closer to the crown. I could have lived without this book. I could have lived without the romance. This is another one where I think the romance was totally unnecessary. The Familiar, I'm not really sure what the point of his powers were. There was a deal made. Like, I'm just not in here for Leigh Bardugo's storytelling. It's a good book, but Leigh Bardugo's stories are just not for me. The romance was not for me. They could have made our romance interest a father figure, and I think it would have had a better impact than what it was. And that is the fourth book that I read in. I also read the first 2 books in the library. I think it's going to be a trilogy by Mark Lawrence. I love Mark Lawrence. The book that wouldn't burn, was not what I expected. It had very cozy vibes, a very good introduction into this trilogy. I think it had a little bit cozy, and it had a little bit dark fantasy, not quite grim dark, just dark. We have Lavira and Evar. Lavira is from one sect of the world. She is from the dust, and she has been brought into this city where the center of the city is a library that contains all knowledge. And the way her lifespan carries on is she winds up working in this library where she runs across Ivar, who has spent his entire life living in the library with his found family. And they learn that there is a huge control of information. We go through their stories. It is very dramatic. I did a whole review on this book. This was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. I want to continue with the series, obviously, because I picked up the book that broke the world right after. Totally different vibes. I'm going to do, it matches. I'm going to do a whole review on this book, but totally different vibes. We pick up right at the end. There isn't a huge time gap. Well, there's a time gap, but if you've read the book that wouldn't burn, you understand what I mean. So we do have a little bit of a time gap, but it essentially starts right at the end. Lavira and Ivar are searching for one another throughout the library. Ivar leaves the library for the first time. We're also introduced to a third species, to a third type of character. And this is another one where halfway through, or maybe even a third of the way through, you're a little lost. But if you get through it all, everything pulls together very nicely at the end of the book. I'm really curious to see how Mark Lawrence is going to finish this series off. Totally different vibes. There is nothing cozy about the book that broke the world. It is very dark. It discusses things like slavery, biological warfare, trauma, war, racism, classism, again, the control of information. And it is just, we still have our animal companions, but they're not as in the forefront as they were in the first book in the series. But I do love Mark Lawrence. I'm going to continue the series. I need the next book now. And the cover's pretty. I'm a sucker for blue covers. And it looks like this month I have physical copies of everything that I read, even except for Sapiens. So that's rare because I usually at least have one book on Kindle, but everything was a physical read this month. I read Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I didn't intend to purchase this book, but I purchased this book. So we have our main character, Dr. Ophelia Bray, and she has been commissioned on a journey with a crew of, I guess, researchers that are going to an abandoned planet. This is a space horror. There are things on the planet that should not be there. Dr. Ophelia Bray is there to research essentially PTSD that affects these contractors mainly because they're sleep deprived and they're in space. And she starts seeing symptoms amongst the crew and amongst herself. And it is a space horror. It is a quick read. Not really my genre, but I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know any psychologists personally. I only know my therapist, but she just is analyzing everybody from the first page, and it did kind of annoy me. But I'm guessing that's just how people that study mental health are. But other than that, this was a great read. It was a little bit annoying when she would analyze everybody, including herself. But she does have secrets of her own, and those come to the forefront and cause drama and mistrust among her crew members. Quick, fast read. If you're into space horror, you will like this. Not really my genre in books, it's my genre in movies, but it was still a good one. If you're into that, I recommend it. The Spider by Leo Carew is the second in Under the Northern Sky series. This is 2 species of humans, now 3 species of humans, essentially at war with one another. We do have biological warfare in this one as well, or just the introduction of it. We do have treachery. We do have a character that I wanted to see more of, and that is Bellamus. We do see our female character, whose name I cannot remember for the life of me right now, because I'll key it in. But we do see her grow a little bit more. We finally see her get angry at her husband, which is what I wanted in the first book. She didn't have much of a personality, and he fixed that in this one, because he messed up. He messed up with his wife bad. But I can't talk a lot about this without spoiling anything from the first book, The Wolf. But I honestly see this becoming one of my new favorite series. 3 different species of humans, how they coexist, how they cannot coexist, and probably why we're alone on this planet as far as intelligent life goes, except for dolphins, because dolphins are really smart. But new favorite series. I'm not going to do a review of this book. What I will do is when I finish the 3rd in this series, I'm going to do a series review, but amazing. I am obsessed with Bellamus. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of A Song of Ice and Fire, but I think fans of A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, will really enjoy reading this. It is political military fantasy, and it is so good. There's no magic in this. You're not going to find magic in this book, but treachery and just manipulation. And you see, once again, like how we saw in Red Rising, how personal vendettas can have catastrophic effects, because we have spies that are just bitter because they've been kind of cast aside or shunned, and just these personal problems can have devastating effects in the face of war. I loved this. I cannot wait to read The Cuckoo. It's on my TBR for this upcoming month. Great. That is going to be a new favorite series. For the 2nd book in a series, 5 stars. 5 stars. And if The Cuckoo goes the way I think The Cuckoo is going to go, because I think that's going to delve more into our secret murderous society, this is going to be like a 10 out of 5 star series. I love it. It is not magical fantasy. It is very political, very heavy and military, but it is good. It is good. Now, on a completely different part of fantasy, we have Dragon Fruit by Makai Lucier. This follows Hanalei. Basically, in the beginning of the story, she is studying dragons. We find out early on that she has not necessarily been exiled from her kingdom from 10 years, but she has been kicked out of her kingdom for 10 years because her father stole a dragon's egg, which was intended for the queen to save his daughter's life. And she has been through some rough times since then. She has basically worked as a slave, as in child labor. And we see her going back to her island home, where she reunites with old family and friends. Very light romance. There's barely romance in this book, which I love. I'm not sure how I feel about this book yet. It's been a couple days since I finished it, but I want to think about it a little more before I review it. The beginning of the book was very smooth. We were introduced to our characters very nicely. The pacing felt natural. The dragons were fun. And then about halfway through, it kind of got a little messy for me. I kind of felt like we were rushing through things. There was a death in this book that I didn't think was necessary, that upset me. And the fact that it was just like stepped over kind of hurt my feelings. We do have animal companions aside from the dragons. The dragons are fun. They're not iron flame dragons. They're just natural sea dragons. We do have some court corruption. We do have multiple characters in this book. For under 400 pages, we had a lot of characters. We did get really close to some of them. There's some political manipulation. There is some piracy, but very quick, fast-paced story. I think this would be a good summer read if you want something light and fun. I don't know if this is going to be a standalone. If it is, then it could have been 700 pages instead of under 400, and I think it would have benefited from this. If this is the first in a series, then it was a great introduction. But I'm not sure what I'm rating this book yet. I do recommend it if you want to pick up something fast-paced and easy. This is an easy read. The death will upset you. It will upset you. I'm letting you know now. You won't even be sad. You'll be angry. But a great fun read. It's going to be a good summer fantasy. I just am upset about the death. So do pick it up, but I'm not sure. I just wanted more. That's where I'm at right now. I wanted more from this book. And that's not a bad thing. That means I want, give me more. All right, and that is everything that I read in the month of April. I did stick to at least the 4 main books I wanted to get off my TBR, and everything else was very loose, but I did for the most part read everything I wanted to read except for Spark of the Everflame and a couple others, but I will be getting to those soon. Maybe not this coming month, because there's a lot on this month's TBR that I want to get through. But another great reading month. The only downside I'm gonna say was The Familiar, which I need to stop getting on book hype trains. I know when a book isn't for me, I can feel it in my bones, but there's that little bit of hope, and it's not something I'm going to be doing anymore, no matter how popular a book is on BookTok, because I did not enjoy reading that. But that was everything I read in the month of April. We're going to see if I can stick to a TBR or a loose TBR 2 months in a row, because I am a mood reader, and that is not easy. If you could, please drop a like and a subscribe, because it really motivates me to keep this channel going. I did order a microphone to replace the old microphone that was garbage. And here's an off book review. If you go on Amazon and you see that bestseller little microphone for iPhones, don't buy it. It makes the video quality worse than this. So don't waste your $15. Spend a little extra and get something better, because that microphone is not it. Anyway, I will see you next time for a quick TBR video. Let me know if there's any of these books that you want a more in-depth review on. I'm definitely going to do a more in-depth review on Dragonfruit, because I still need to gather my thoughts on that, and probably Mark Lawrence. But I will see you guys next time. Thanks for hanging out, and happy reading. Oh, that was cheesy. I'm never saying that again. Don't worry. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.